Every year, the Game Awards crowns one title above all others, Game of the Year. But here's the truth, not every winner ages like fine wine. Some stand the test of time, becoming legends, others, let's just say their spot at the top is debatable. Today, I'm ranking every single Game of the Year winner from 2014 to 2024, from worst to best. Some of you are going to agree, some of you are going to want to throw me into Blighttown for this list. Either way, it's going to be fun. Kicking off at number 11, Astrobot, the 2024 mainline return from Team Asboy. This game is almost aggressively charming. The level design is candy-colored creativity, macro puzzles, punchy platforming beats, and moments that make you grin like an idiot. It's literally built to show off the PS5. The DualSense feels like part of the level design itself. Haptics on jumps, adaptive trigger, tension when you launch rockets. These aren't gimmicks, they reinforce the gameplay loop, almost flawless at what it sets out to do. But that's also the rub. It sets out to be a joyful platformer first and everything else second. Compared to the towering narrative or RPG of other GOTY winners, Astrobot's scope is smaller. It's focused, not sprawling. That makes it a masterpiece of design within its lane, but less of a cultural, year-defining voice than the heavy hitters above it. Bits of genius in level transitions where a tiny mechanic is cleverly expanded into a whole world. But Astrobot didn't reshape how most people play games. Instead, it reminded us why platformers can be pure delight. It Takes Two is an exercise in controlled chaos. Level designers at Haze Light essentially made a new minigame in every chapter. Platforming, rhythm, shooter segments, even racing. The game's genius is in variety. Boredom never gets a chance. That variety keeps the pace electric for most of the run. But let's be blunt, it requires co-op. If you're solo and can't cope someone in, you miss half the experience. And the story, sweet, messy, sometimes oddly earnest. Equal parts clever and cringe, depending on your tolerance. It Takes Two is one of those only modern games that absolutely demands cooperation. You can't brute force it, you can't ignore your partner. You have to work together. And that creates moments you'll remember forever. The laughs, the aha puzzle moments, even the arguments over who messed up a jump. It's a game that forces communication in the best way possible. But let's be real, if you don't have someone to play with, basically if you are a Soulsborne fan, this game is basically doesn't exist for you. It's a masterpiece in co-op, but as a solo experience, forget it. Dragon Age Inquisition arrived with big promises, branching politics, sprawling zones, and a return to BioWare choices. When it hits, it hits. There are moments of real emotional tenderness and political intrigue. Some companions have scenes that still sting. However, the structure undermines the greatness. The rush to fill environments led to repetitive objectives, the collect clear treadmill. You spend a lot of time doing busy work that dilutes the impact of the major plot beats. Also, the combat can feel bland compared to tighter system that came later. The game dared to scale BioWare dialogue to an epic level and introduced some memorable moral quandaries, but as a GOTY winner, judged against later. BioWare has always been great at writing characters you care about, and this game is no different. Moments like sitting by a campfire, joking with your squad, or watching a romance subplot play out, those are the parts that really stay with me. And visually for 2014, those sweeping zones were jaw-dropping. But here's the thing, a lot of the game is filler. The infamous collect 10 beer pelt side quest, the endless resource gathering, it bogs down the story pacing. You spend more time cleaning up icon on a map than actually chasing the epic main plot. And combat, serviceable but not great. So while it was a huge win for its time, compared to what came after, Inquisition feels like a stepping stone. Important, memorable, but not timeless. Overwatch is a lesson in momentum. Blizzard launched a hero shooter that instantly clicked. Distinct characters, readable fights, and ultra-polished feedback loops made it accessible for millions. The peak community and cultural reach massive. Cosplay, memes, highlight reels, it felt like gaming's pop song for a couple years. The downside has been the long tail. Sustainability requires constant updates and balance, and over time that became harder. Competitive troubles and development decisions chipped away at the sheen. The reality is, impact is not permanent. Overwatch's moment was spectacular, but the staying power isn't as strong as other winners that revered genres. Overwatch is pure joy in multiplayer form. Every match could surprise you. Clutch plays, last second ultimates, and those ridiculous team vibes that makes you laugh and groan at the same time. It was a game that could turn any day into a highlight reel, but because of its long-term issues, balance patches, hero fatigue, plus the uneven rollout of Overwatch 2, it hasn't aged as gracefully as some of the single-player heavyweights. It was a cultural tsunami, but not a timeless masterpiece. Its impact is undeniable, but it doesn't carry the same enduring gameplay depth as, say, for example, Elden Ring or Baldur's Gate 3. The Last of Us Part 2. This one is complicated. I mean, everybody knows that this game is complicated. I don't even know how to start to talk about this game. The Last of Us Part 2 is a technical and performative marvel. The animation, facial work, and set pieces are storybook level. In some scenes, it feels like you're watching cinema crafted specifically for interactive medium. The gameplay complements that. Creeping, careful stealth, and vicious, lethal encounters. But the story turned into a lightning rod. It asked players to sit with ugliness and moral ambiguity. And that discomfort blew up into feverish debate. For some players, that thematic bravery elevated the game. It demanded reflection. For others, manipulative. Characters they loved were used to produce shock rather than organic narrative payoff. If you want a personal take, for me The Last of Us Part 2 is a great game. I don't care what people say about it. I really actually like the gameplay, the story, and I'm not really deep into debates either. But right now I don't really want to play it anymore. I don't like to play it anymore because most of the things that are people talking about right now are controversials. It's not really about the game itself, it's about the news and the characters or the choices of the characters, which I don't really care at this point. You may like this because it challenges players emotionally. The story asks you to sit with uncomfortable themes and the consequences of actions hit hard. It's one of the few games where I remember thinking, wow, I actually feel something in here. The care in the world building and the character moments is extraordinary. It's a masterclass in story and performance, but when stacked against games that offer infinite player freedom or lasting mechanical depth, it doesn't top this list. Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. Sekiro is a definition of purity in design. It has one incredible mechanical thread, posture and deflection, and the whole game is woven around mastering it. That makes victories transcendent. A perfectly timed parry that opens a boss up feels surgical and euphoric. That purity also narrows the audience though. No build diversity, no summons, minimal narrative branching. Sekiro is an old school ritual of trial, death and eventual mastery. That approach is noble, but it leaves out players who want variety in approach. I love Sekiro for the pure joy of mastery. The first perfect parry on a boss, the adrenaline rush is unmatched. It's a kind of a game where failure is as much as learning tool as victory, and that loop is incredibly satisfying. The world is harsh, but it feels fair in its logic. The reinvention of Kratos is one of the cleanest franchise retcons ever. From action arcade to a character-driven myth, God of War kept the spectacle while folding in character growth. The Leviathan axe is brilliant in both feel and design. Recall mechanics that lets you use the environments and upgrade trees that reward experimentation. Narratively, making the story about fatherhood and trauma gave the game stakes behind the punches. The journey felt intimate on top of being epic, which is rare. My only nitpicks are small. Pacing stalls in the middle and a few bosses feel padded, but those are quibbles on an otherwise towering title. Quiet father-son moments and massive world-ending bosses live side by side. It's a game that can make you tear up in one scene and then scream at a ridiculously hard boss the next. You cannot deny that the God of War 2018 is a art. a pure and masterful art. The Witcher 3 set a literal new standards for narrative RPGs. The writing is layered, often messy in the best way. Characters are morally grey and choices that read like short novels, and expansions that are as hefty as standalone games turned this into a generational experience. These are rough edges, some combat awkwardness and occasional bugs at launch, but those pale next to the depth of the world. The expansions, particularly the Blood and Wine, are so good that they feel like a bonus second GOTY candidate. They are basically better than some games that are being released these years, especially Assassin's Creed games. I don't like Assassin's Creed games. You can basically compare the DLC of a game that was released in 2015 with a game that was released like 2 years ago, and you're going to understand why this Witcher 3 is praised so much. I love The Witcher 3 because of the sheer depth and immersion. Getting lost in the towns, debating choices, and watching a side quest spiral into unexpected tragedy, all is unforgettable. Even a simple contract hunt feels like an adventure, but while groundbreaking in its scope and narrative, the combat is somewhat clunky and doesn't evolve much. Actually, I know that if you try to play this game on the other difficulties like hard mode, you can have a better experience in the gameplay, but to be honest, I don't think that you can count that. This game didn't just iterate an open world design, it reimagined it. Breath of the Wild handed players a toolkit instead of an itinerary. The joy is in experimentation, using weather, arrows, physics, and chemistry to solve problems in unexpected ways. Discovery is the reward. Criticisms are real too. A light central story and a decisive weapon durability system that forced you into constant scavenging. But those decisions were trade-offs to preserve a pure sense of exploration and invention. You're going to love this game because every session feels like an adventure. Climbing a peak, finding a hidden shrine, or figuring out a clever puzzle solution never gets old. That freedom and surprise is intoxicating, and it inspires creativity in how you play. And about the weapon durability or the stamina bar problems that some people might have, you can actually turn those things off if you play it on PC, which I did. Elden Ring took an established formula and gave it room to breathe. The lands between are a playground for discovery, with organic dungeons and boss design that reward curiosity. The biggest advance is choice in approach, summonable allies, multiple viable builds, and layered secrets turned each run into a story. Culturally, Elden Ring was massive. It hooked a huge audience on a brand of difficulty that previously felt niche. It showed that punishing gameplay can be accessible if you give players options to approach it their way. I praise Elden Ring because it's a playground for discovery and everything else you can imagine. You can summon allies, cheese a boss, or dive headfirst into death with confidence. The joy of learning, mastering, and improvising in its world is unmatched. It's not the best Soulsborne game out there for me because I like Bloodborne more, but because it's not niche and it's more expanded and more stretched, definitely the best game in the eyes of the audience. And finally, number 1, Baldur's Gate 3. Larian Studios took Dungeons and Dragons and transformed it into a digital sandbox where choices really matter, like really matter. Dialogue, combat, relationships, and even silly emergent events ripple through the game. Want to seduce a vampire? Turn into a mind flayer. Throw a gnome off a cliff? You can. It's absurd, chaotic, and brilliant. The biggest joy is the unexpected, clever dialogue paths that punishes assumptions, environmental combos in combat that feel like tiny tabletop triumphs, and a narrative that bends to your nonsense. It's also absurdly replayable. You can run a lawful good paladin playthrough and then immediately reset to be pretty chaotic evil. The system holds up under under that stress and reward sandbox play more than most narrative games. One of the reasons that this game is that the first is because permission. It gives you permission to roleplay, to fail spectacularly, and to tell the kind of weird stories that make friends trade screenshots for weeks. That's a rare magic. This game is just a rare magic. Out of nowhere, Larian Studio made a masterpiece that lasts forever. I am playing this game even now. And most of the people who actually don't like this game never even played it, which is more absurd than you think. And that's my final list. From Astrobot's pure joy to Baldur's Gate 3's magic. Every one of these winners reflects the value of its moment, whether that's technical daring, narrative wrestling, or pure design bravado. Agree, disagree, that's what the comments are for. If you got riled up, great. The internet needs more video game arguments. If you liked the video, drop a like and subscribe. If you hate it, drop a like anyway. The hated funds the algorithm. Thanks for watching. See you next video, and remember, whether you're building a cargo plane in the Tears of the Kingdom or rolling a 1 in Baldur's Gate, play something that makes you smile.